Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Firefighters podcast, where we seek to develop, inspire, and motivate the world of the emergency services operator through a series of wide-ranging conversations. Now, before we go any further, just hit that rate, follow, or subscribe button on whatever platform you're listening to. It's a key performance indicator for us and helps us reach even more people. Now, here's what we've got for you today. Today on the podcast, we have a whole host of guests because this is a bit of a roundup episode from our trip to the Emergency Services Show on the 17th and 18th of September 2025, held in NEC Birmingham. And as you roll through the episode, you will hear a number of different chats cropping up for what is hopefully a lovely buffet and representation of some of the incredible people that attended this year's Emergency Services Show. And I'll see you on the other side. Next, I bumped into John Lord and Robbie Burns, and we discussed SNOWMED codes. Both these gentlemen have been on the podcast before. Absolute powerhouses when it comes to encouraging firefighters to be much more aware of their exposure to toxic effluents, to toxic chemicals in the carcinogenic profession that we engage with. So this is a really valuable one around SNOWMED codes, and there'll be some links in the notes for you to be able to find out a little bit more about this. Let's get in there with Robbie and John.
So Robbie Burns here at the NEC with my friend and colleague John Lord, trying to push as much as we can the issue of SNOWMED codes and the fact that people aren't putting them on their records.
Love it. I thought you were going to just do your name. Doesn't matter. But
Sorry.
So I'll keep it simple then, Pete. It's John Lord with Robbie. Over to you.
John, Robbie, stumbled across two Avengers in the middle of this chaotic world of marketing, awareness, the good, the bad, the ugly, lots of different values and motivations as to why people are here at the Emergency Services Show. Most people, but I always have to reverse back, because most people will probably be familiar with both of you, John, all the work that you do all across the world, Robbie, all the stuff you do with cancer awareness. We spoke about SNOWMED codes on our conversation together, but it's really struggling to punch its way into the awareness of a lot of services, brigades, and general organisations. Give us a bit of an understanding, firstly, of what it is, and then maybe we'll go into some detail around why it's important.
So the SNOWMED codes, in essence, be two codes, one that identifies firefighters, one that identifies people who have had an organisational exposure to toxic agents. Now, for me, I think that's police officers, that's paramedics, that's people who work in the refinery world. You know, it's not just firefighters. So the two codes are a signposting system that the NHS really should be adopting fully. The reality is they're not doing that.
Michael Potts came to mind when you were just saying that. Wasn't that the first time the Chimney Sweep Act, or whatever it is? You probably know this better than me, John. Sorry if I'm leading you both down a blind path. Are you aware of it? Can you speak with better confidence on it? So it was somebody Potts, I can't remember what it was. There was a PPE specialist that spoke to me about it, and it was the first time they started realising occupational exposure, because they were sending young lads up and down these chimneys, and they were all getting horrific diseases at like 16, 17 years of age, and it was something to that effect, and I forget what the act was. I don't know if any of you remember
I don't know the act, but I certainly know the history around chimney sweeps and the fact that they
Give me that, because I find that fascinating.
So yeah, bladder cancer is prevalent massively among, or was prevalent certainly among chimney sweeps, as you said, at a really young age. So that was mentioned to me when I was having my journey, if you like, that I was quite young for my diagnosis of bladder cancer, but it was common, had been common, and they were still treating people in their 30s and 40s that have been diagnosed because of the effluents, because of the soot, etc. So I don't know about the Act itself, but most certainly there is an awareness around that industry. And they probably haven't actually got these SNOWMED codes on there, because we still have chimney sweeps, clearly.
I actually think it was a precursor to the Health and Safety at Work Act, because it then put the obligation on the employer. I'm probably getting that wrong, and some listeners far more educated than me will be swearing at the thing. But that element of occupational thing, it's one of those things, John, we've said it before, that if we'd have known better, we'd have done better. For quite a long time now, we've known better. We're struggling to shift into, and there's some financial elements, there's some who's going to get blamed elements. America is full of a very litigation-heavy world. We're not looking for that, but we're getting to a good point where we're struggling to know why we're not doing things a bit quicker, aren't we?
This episode of the podcast is brought to you by Gore-Tex Professional Fabrics. Now, we all know the working environment of a firefighter is filled with challenges. We face serious risks on the job, such as heat exhaustion, burns, physical and mental stress, and we frequently come into contact with high levels of toxic chemicals. Now, I have been wearing Gore-Tex for nearly 2 decades on the front line, working in hostile environments, tackling challenging incidents from firefighting to water incidents, and in urban search and rescue environments. Gore-Tex have a well-earned reputation for protecting professionals in the fire and emergency services through their family of highly innovative, waterproof, breathable moisture barriers that exceeds global performance standards and are trusted worldwide. Gore-Tex, going further together.
I think the issue for me, Pete, is that if we look at America, we've got something like 39 states out of the 52 that's got legislation in place. We're not at that stage yet.
Yeah.
If the only thing we can achieve over the next maybe 18 months is that the whole of the NHS adopt the SNOWMED codes,
Yep.
that when a firefighter or another blue light responder goes to the doctors with a condition, it signposts the right kind of tests that doesn't necessarily jump them the queue, but actually identifies, well, they've come with a bad chest, but actually I need to consider X, Y, and Z as well to get a true diagnosis, because there's this elevated risk of numerous cancers, numerous health conditions. That would be a win way before we start talking about presumptive legislation.
So we're talking about their predisposition, effectively, because of the way they've lived their life, the job they've done. They likely have a predisposition, and rather than looking at this spectrum of a million things it could be, it kind of helps you focus the lens for your general practitioner to say, first look at these before you, not waste your time, but before you look at, someone who's used to say to me, if you hear hooves, think horses, not zebras.
Yeah.
Because if you hear, it's probably a horse.
Yeah.
Yeah. It might be a zebra. It might be this. It might be a giraffe. No, it's probably a horse, though, isn't it? Because we're in the UK and you live in the UK.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Common things happen often, I think,
Yes.
is a good phrase too. So, from my understanding, if you know my history with diagnosis, etc., I was given antibiotics initially.
For people that don't, that haven't heard your episode, just give us. I know it's harsh to say a whistle-stop tour. But
No. Aged 40, I was diagnosed with bladder cancer, and for the first 15 or 18 months, I was given antibiotics and other non-diagnoses because of my age. We weren't aware of my occupation, or my GP certainly wasn't aware of my occupation. I didn't know I should tell them. And it turned out that I did have a bladder cancer, and it certainly wasn't a urine infection, which then led to lots more invasive surgeries. Had they been caught quicker, had the symptoms presented, and my GP had an awareness, I would have been treated much earlier, much more successfully too. So the two codes we have, we need to encourage more than the 20% take-up that there is now. It's really not enough.
is that all it is?
Less than.
Wow. Okay.
So we need to, every principal officer and officer that is under that principal officer needs to have this mandated now, I feel. It isn't a guidance document anymore, it is a procedure. So when you join the fire and rescue service, you are obliged to fill SNOWMED codes to your GP.
Okay.
It's a gift, it's a free gift, you know.
So slow down on that bit for me, because if people are hearing this, it's becoming emotive for them. How are we logically, am I expecting my employer to do it? Is there something I need to go to my GP about? How am I going to actually do this? This episode is brought to you in partnership with MSA Safety. Today we have them to thank for the improved firefighter safety through connectivity in their brand new connected firefighter system. At the center of the connected firefighter platform is the MSA M1 SCBA with telemetry. That integrates straight in with the Luna system, which is a wireless all-in-one device creating an independent search and rescue network, providing edge detection, enhanced personal thermal imaging, while simplifying post-scene reporting and data retention. All of this then plugs into the Fire Grid system for cloud-based connectivity, real-time information, and data-driven decisions for the incident commander. MSA are truly taking massive strides in the future of improved firefighter safety through connectivity in the brand new MSA Connected Firefighter platform. Now back to the show.
2 ways then.
Okay.
Obviously, there's lots of information. The FBU website's got a template letter. We've been handing out the cards.
Okay.
So you could do it yourself, but ideally to carry the weight with a lot of surgeries, you need something like a letter. So from the fire service, from your station commander to say, Pete Warefield's, employed as a firefighter, an active firefighter, or, and I think this is a provision we've missed, a retired firefighter. Yep. We shouldn't be missing them out. I've got a survey which I'll share with you, Pete, and the retired feel so let down by their old organisation. They feel abandoned.
Would my letter of employment suffice? Just to close the loop, does it need...
No, I think we need to emphasise within it the reclassification under IAIC, that firefighting is now a Class 1 cancer risk. We need to make it clear that there is over 1,200 studies proving the medical and scientific enhanced risk of cancers from contaminants. And we need to be a bit more strong-armed too, and be saying to the practices that don't adopt it, we're going to raise it as a complaint through PALS, because you're not complying with the NHS own rules on digital record keeping. So there's a couple of ways. I think if it comes from the service, from the employer, it's going to carry a bit more weight when you're sitting in front of the GP.
Could I just add to that
Please.
If you were to Google WHO, the same as the band, WHO firefighter cancer, it will bring up the IARC report that John has just relevant. That would then be provided to your GP if needed. If they don't adopt the system, you can show them this report, and it states that firefighting is carcinogenic to humans at the highest category. We are 4 times more likely to get a disease in our life. Therefore, we need these codes. We don't want people to have it as we might need them. We need these against our GP records. They will save lives. We need to do it. So that's from a principal officer level all the way, each and every fire and rescue service. At the moment anyway, it will spread through to ambulance and JESIP, etc. Each and every fire and rescue service has almost a moral obligation now to share these codes with all of their employees who could reasonably expected to go into a fire situation. So that's fire investigation, that's firefighters, that's across the piece. And we are failing to do that. So we are culpable.
I think the other one, Pete, to not forget, on a lot of stations we have cooks still, we have station admins, we have BA technicians, BA mechanics, fireground
coming
support.
in and out of stations all day long.
All of those people are exposed on return to station from appliances and firefighters. We need to think,
including all of our Green Book staff, as you say.
Exactly. Are we provisioning that they're getting this same opportunity to signpost they might have an issue? We find out lots of things. Breast cancer, we know in the female firefighters is significant in terms of an elevated risk. So is a station admin whose office is next to the engine bays
Yep. And then
exposed?
every week someone goes, excuse me, this piece of kit is off the run, I'm just going to dump it on your office floor full of contaminants, and you're going to fiddle about with it, and can you just take it to workshops for us? And they're interacting with that all the time.
And IT, so people that come and fix our mobile data terminals or our radios that have been on our BA systems,
climbing on
IT.
and off the fire trucks.
Totally. They are oblivious. Essentially, they haven't got these codes. They need them. And it's as simple as going onto your NHS app or going to see your GP in person. And presenting with this. As John alluded to already, only 50% of the NHS have taken this up. They're mandated to. They should have this in place. It's something they should be doing. If they're not doing, Patient Advisory Liaison Group is where they need to go. PALS. They need to put a complaint in. My service, my GP surgery, my secondary care, whatever that looks like, hasn't got this system in place, and they need it.
The team here at the podcast are extremely excited to announce our brand new partnership with Patrol Store UK. Patrol Store has been serving the UK's police, fire and emergency communities and first responder sector since 2008, providing leading brands such as Hikes, Magnum, 511, Nebo, Op Zulu, Highlander, AKU and many, many more of our favourites. They are now also supplying bespoke uniform, PPE and station workwear to fire services around the UK. So for all our listeners that are part of your USAR, your HEART team, your ISAR team, your armed response teams, your fire investigation, your NALO, your hazmat and all of the training departments that have got your own budgets, be sure to get the absolute best for your team at a realistic price by contacting Aaron and the team at Patrol Store and referencing the Firefighters podcast. Patrol Store will also be taking part in our listener competition giveaways, as well as providing unique discounts to podcast listeners. So for people that are always asking about Hikes boots as an example, that is one unique discount code that is coming to you very soon through Patrol Store. We've also got some incredible bags. I mean, the Op Zulu bags are a game changer. So the really Gucci and expensive tactical black bags that everyone's using in CrossFit workouts and taking to the gym and taking to stations? Well, they've basically got that, but it's made better and costs less, because they're not slapping some Gucci expensive brand name on it and it's giving you what you want on a first responder salary. Be sure to keep your eyes in the notes of the episodes for links to unique offers and discount codes. And if you're looking to buy well and buy once, be sure to get in the notes and head over to Patrol Store UK. Now back to the show.
So we've got website you provide us with, we've got the study you're going to provide us with, we'll stick a link for that. For those retired individuals, they still speak to their union representatives. If people are in their services and they've looked at the website, they've had a look at the study, but they're struggling to get any traction. Would we encourage them to speak to because their union representatives should be aware of the stuff that's come through the union as well?
Yeah.
I think we could, but I think we need to
We don't want to make it
remember,
a us and them argument.
No, but I think we need to remember that a massive amount now of the responder community are not union members, you know. So aviation, as I say, you know, they're not FBU members. But that's not to say that you couldn't take that template letter and, you know, use it.
There's many unions,
you know,
isn't there?
as a background. But yeah, you know, RBs. But there again, you know, there's a simple one here, isn't there? Why, for example, an NFCC approached the Department of Health with that simple question?
Yeah.
Why is SNOWMED not being adopted across the entire NHS?
Yeah.
Has that question been asked? I'm saying they haven't asked it, but they may well have done. But if they have, what's been the reply?
Yeah.
You know,
it's not a big asset acquisition challenge to solve.
No.
It's an electronic thing, isn't it?
And it's also laziness. We are lazy firefighters. We know that. I'm a firefighter. I'm lazy. Explosive on the fireground, as I've always mentioned. But people, our risk appetite is such that we don't worry about the here and now. We need to worry about the here and now. We need to know that, I mean, anecdotal studies in Canada are that it's affecting our sperm. So they suggest that if you've had an incident, there is a potential 60-day dwell time before you try and procreate, because that is a significant thing, that we are affecting our newborn children with the sperm that we are producing, because it's that toxic. So if it's that toxic, we need to think about what's it doing to us in terms of our internal makeup. This is the difference between getting a stage 1 diagnosis and a stage 4 diagnosis. This is literally that. This is about investigative pieces from a GP who isn't going to treat that sore throat as strepsils or a flu virus is going around. They're going to look towards mesothelioma or something more significant and then discount it. That's not to say we're all going to get mesothelioma. That's to say that they're going to discount that you haven't got it.
Gentlemen, I think it's a really powerful conversation. I really appreciate your time today. And hopefully we get to change a lot of lives with it.
Absolutely. Cheers, Pete.
All right. Cheers, Pete.
The Firefighters podcast was created to recognise, acknowledge, inspire, and hopefully even motivate these incredible individuals who have chosen to be part of the first responder community. Our driving purpose is to create a legacy resource for the current and future generations of firefighters and first responders. We get some incredible feedback from listeners and guests, and as the podcast grows, our desire to create longevity and sustainability means that we are asking for the support of our listeners. If you want to support the podcast, if you want to get discounts to our merchandise, hoodies, clothing, coins, patches, and also access to all of the incredible documents get shared with us from our podcast guests and sector leaders, then please head over to our Patreon page, and for just £3 a month you can support the future of the podcast. Please finally hit that follow, subscribe or rate button on the platform you're listening, and wherever you're around the world, please support your emergency services responders, and thank you for listening.